A pair of Hoka Bondi 8s costs $165 at retail. The actual cost to manufacture that shoe, including every bit of foam, every millimeter of mesh, every stitch, every label, every glue application, and the cardboard box it ships in, is somewhere between $5 and $7. Not 50, not 20, $6, give or take a buck. I know this because I spent years inside this industry. I've held the bill of materials in my hands, and last week I took a brand new pair of Hokas, a box cutter, and a digital scale, and I went through that shoe layer by layer on camera. What I found was worse than I expected, and not in the way you probably think. Because here's the thing everyone gets wrong about the sneaker markup conversation. They assume the extra money goes to quality. It doesn't. They assume it goes to research. It mostly doesn't. They assume it goes to the workers. It absolutely doesn't. So where does $159 go when you hand over your card at the running store? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand the footwear industry in a way that will permanently change how you shop. And I'm going to show you the one specific thing on every premium shoe that tells you, instantly, whether you're being ripped off or not. That single detail is something no brand wants you to notice, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let me back up for a second and tell you why I care about this. I'm an engineer. I spent a meaningful chunk of my career designing products, and footwear is one of the most fascinating categories in all of consumer goods because it's a product where the gap between perceived value and actual value is almost comical. A t-shirt has maybe a 5 times markup. A nice restaurant meal might be 3 times food cost. A bottle of wine at a fancy place 4 times. A premium sneaker 25 to 30 times the cost of goods. That's not a typo. When you walk into a store and see a shoe with a $180 price tag, you're looking at something that costs $6 or $7 to make. And most people, even smart people, even people who negotiate car prices and research laptops for weeks, just accept that number because the shoe looks premium, feels premium, and the brand has spent $1 billion convincing them it is premium. So when I cut open this Hoka, I wasn't trying to do a hit piece. I was trying to do what engineers do, which is to look at a claim and test it against reality. Here's what was in the box. The upper, which is the top part of the shoe that wraps around your foot, is made of what the industry calls engineered mesh. That sounds high-tech. It's not. It's polyester yarn, mostly recycled in this case, knitted on a machine that costs about the same as a mid-range car and can produce thousands of uppers per day. The cost of the mesh for one shoe, including the overlays and the little reinforcement panels near the heel, is about $1.10. I weighed it. I identified the fiber. I looked up the wholesale yarn pricing, $1.10. Now, there's a detail on this upper that I want you to notice because it's going to come back later in the video. Along the side of the shoe, there's a decorative stripe that looks like it's a structural element. It's not. It's printed, just a layer of pigment. And that tiny design decision, which costs the factory maybe 4 cents, is part of why this shoe sells for $165 instead of $50. I'll explain why in a minute. The midsole, which is the thick foam layer that Hoka is famous for, is the most expensive single component in the shoe. It's made from something called EVA, ethylene vinyl acetate, which is basically the same plastic that's in pool noodles and yoga mats. Hoka uses a slightly fancier version, a compression-molded EVA with some rubber mixed in to give it a little more rebound, and they inject some nitrogen bubbles into it during manufacturing to make it lighter. All of that sounds impressive. The actual cost to produce that midsole, including the mold, the material, the labor, the energy for compression, and the quality control, is right around $2.40 per shoe. And remember, this is the part that Hoka's entire marketing is built around. The thick, cushy marshmallow ride. The reason people spend the money. It's $2.40 of pool noodle foam with nitrogen bubbles in it. I'm not being cynical, I'm being precise. That's the number. The outsole, the rubber that touches the ground, is about 80 cents. The insole, the little foam pad inside the shoe that your foot sits on, is 30 cents. The laces, 12 cents. The eyelets, the little metal rings the laces go through, 8 cents. The tongue and the padding around the ankle collar, about 40 cents combined. The glue, which is a surprisingly big deal in shoe construction because a modern running shoe uses 7 to 9 different adhesives for different materials, costs about 30 cents per shoe. The box, the tissue paper, the little sticker on the side, the barcode label, the size tag, all of that packaging together about 60 cents. Now add the labor. A shoe like this takes somewhere between 22 and 28 minutes of human labor to assemble, spread across maybe 40 different stations in a factory in Vietnam or Indonesia. The fully loaded labor cost, including benefits where they exist, overhead factory lighting, the whole thing, comes out to about $1.10 per shoe. Add it all up and you're at roughly $6.30. Now, the brand pays the factory something higher than that because the factory needs to make a profit too. Hoka probably pays somewhere between $12 and $15 for this shoe landed in the United States, which includes shipping from Asia, import duties, and the factory margin. So from $6 of actual materials and labor, we go to about $14 by the time the shoe sits in Hoka's warehouse in California. From $14 to $165, that's the journey we're about to trace, because this is where it gets interesting. And this is where almost every YouTube video on this topic gets it wrong. People love to say, oh, it's all marketing, oh, they spend it all on LeBron endorsements. That's partially true, but it's a lazy answer. The real breakdown is more complicated and honestly more depressing. Let me walk you through where the money actually goes. When Hoka sells a shoe to a retailer like Fleet Feet or Dick's Sporting Goods, they sell it at wholesale, which is typically 50% of the retail price. So a 165 shoe gets sold to the store for about $82. The retailer marks it up to 165, and they keep the difference, which after their own rent, staff, and overhead, usually nets them maybe $10 to $15 per shoe in actual profit. So the retailer isn't the villain here. They're working on tight margins, especially the independent running stores. Hoka themselves receive $82 per shoe. They paid $14 for it. So their gross profit is $68 per pair. That's a gross margin of about 83%. Absolutely massive by any normal product standard. But here's the catch. That $68 is not profit in the sense of money they get to keep. From that $68, they have to pay for absolutely everything else it takes to run the business. And this is the part that nobody ever breaks down properly. Marketing is the single biggest line item. For a premium footwear brand, marketing typically eats 15 to 20% of revenue. That's the TV ads, the Instagram campaigns, the athlete sponsorships, the race expos, the free shoes they give to influencers, the billboards, the magazine spreads, everything. For our 165 shoe, that's roughly $25 to $33 going to marketing. Let me pause here because this is the moment most people check out of the conversation, and I don't want you to, because think about what that number actually means. It means that when you buy a pair of these shoes, roughly $30 of your purchase is paying to convince the next person to also buy a pair. You are subsidizing the advertisement that will eventually be shown to your coworker, your brother, your friend who's getting into running. The marketing isn't a side effect of the shoe business. It is the shoe business. The product exists to justify the marketing, not the other way around. I'm going to come back to this idea because it matters more than it sounds. Then there's research and development. For Hoka specifically, R&D is relatively high for the industry, maybe 6 to 8% of revenue, because they are a foam-focused brand and they actually do innovate on foam formulations. For our 165 shoe, that's about $10 to $13. Some of that is genuinely useful engineering work. Some of it is what the industry calls story R&D, which means research done specifically to generate marketing claims. The number of foam technologies that have been patented, named, trademarked, and then quietly retired within 2 years because the next one needed to be sold is embarrassing. If you've been buying running shoes for a decade, you've seen probably 20 different foam technologies come and go, each one marketed as a revolutionary breakthrough. Most of them were incremental improvements on the same basic EVA formula. I'm not saying there's no real innovation happening. There is. I'm saying that the amount of real innovation is maybe 1/10 of what the marketing implies. Corporate overhead, the salaries of everyone at headquarters, the office rent, the software, the legal, the finance, the HR, typically runs around 10 to 12% of revenue for a company this size. So another $16 to $20 per shoe. Distribution and warehousing, the cost of moving the shoe from the port to the warehouse to the retailer, is about $3 to $4 per pair. Returns, because people return running shoes at a surprisingly high rate, costs another $2 to $3 on average, spread across all sales. And then there's the brand's own profit margin, which for a publicly traded parent company like Deckers, the company that owns Hoka, runs around 12 to 15% net profit. So of your $165, about $20 to $25 ends up as actual key payable, bankable profit for the brand. So let me give you the simplified final breakdown. $6 to $7 goes to making the shoe. Roughly $8 goes to getting the shoe to the United States and through the distribution chain. $82 ends up with the retailer, who uses most of it to pay their own costs. Of the $82 that Hoka receives, $30 goes to marketing, $12 to research, $18 to corporate overhead, $3 to logistics, and the remaining $20 is profit. That's where your money goes. Now here's where I want to bring back that decorative stripe I mentioned earlier, because I promised I'd explain why it matters. Look at any premium running shoe on the market right now. Really look at it. There's always some visual element that signals technology. A plate, a window in the midsole showing the foam, a colored rod, a panel of mesh that looks structural, a visible pod on the bottom of the outsole. These elements are almost never functional. They are almost always cosmetic. Their entire purpose is to give your brain something to latch onto so that when you look at the shoe, you believe you're looking at engineering. You believe you're looking at technology. You believe you're looking at something worth $165. This is the single most important idea in the entire footwear industry, and almost nobody on the consumer side understands it. The premium shoe market doesn't sell shoes. It sells the visual language of engineering. The actual engineering inside the shoe, the real stuff that affects how it runs, is mostly the foam formulation, and that's the one thing you can't see with your eyes. So brands have to add visual theater. They have to paint on a stripe that looks like support. They have to cut a window into the midsole to show you the foam. They have to mold little bumps into the outsole that look like traction pods. None of it makes the shoe significantly better. All of it makes the shoe significantly more marketable. I want you to try something. Next time you're in a store or even just browsing online, look at a budget running shoe from a brand like Decathlon's Kip Run line or Skechers, or even a Costco house brand. Then look at a premium shoe. Look at the two shoes side by side and specifically ignore the logo and the color. Compare the silhouettes, compare the construction, compare the stitching patterns. In most cases, the budget shoe and the premium shoe are built the same way, out of the same materials, on the same kinds of machines, often in the same countries, sometimes in the same factories. The difference in performance is real, but it is nowhere near the difference in price. I've run in a pair of $25 Kip Runs for a full marathon cycle, and I'll be honest with you, they were 90% of the way to a premium shoe for 15% of the price. The last 10% is what the premium brands sell you. And whether that last 10% is worth the extra $140 is a question only you can answer. But you should at least know that's the trade you're making. Okay, let's talk about a few specific things I noticed when I cut this Hoka open that were interesting, not in a gotcha way, but just as an engineer looking at the product. First, the glue work is actually impressive. Modern athletic shoes use a layered adhesive system where different glues are chosen for different interfaces, and the Hoka factory hit its glue application points really cleanly. No visible runout, no gaps, no contamination. That's good manufacturing. Second, the EVA foam had slightly more uneven density than I expected. When I sliced a cross-section and measured it at different points, the softness varied more than Hoka's marketing would suggest. That's probably within their quality tolerance, but it's something a more expensive manufacturing process could have improved. Third, and this was the thing that genuinely surprised me, the stitching around the heel counter was done with a thread that's noticeably nicer than the mesh it's attached to. That's a small detail, but it tells me somebody at Hoka's product team cares about the heel construction specifically. probably because heel durability is one of the most common warranty issues for running shoes, so they spec a better thread there to reduce returns. That's legitimate product engineering. It costs them maybe 2 cents extra per shoe, and it probably saves them $1 in returns. Smart. So is the Hoka a scam? I want to answer this carefully because the word scam gets thrown around too easily. A scam is when you're promised something you don't get. Hoka delivers on what they promise. The shoes are comfortable. They last a reasonable amount of time. They do the thing they claim to do. It's not a scam in that sense. It's more like a luxury product that's been disguised as a performance product. If you think about it as a luxury good, the math is actually pretty similar to a designer handbag or a high-end watch. You're paying mostly for brand, marketing, and distribution, and the physical object is a relatively small fraction of the price. We don't get mad at Louis Vuitton for selling a bag that costs $30 to make for $2,000 because everyone understands that game. The footwear industry plays the same game, but it's dressed up in the language of performance and engineering, so people feel cheated when they find out. The cheating isn't in the price. The cheating is in the story. Here's a practical question you might be asking. If the margins are this huge, why doesn't some startup come in and sell a great shoe for $40? The answer is that some have tried and most have failed, and the reason is that the marketing cost is the real moat. You can make a shoe as good as a Hoka for the same $14 landed cost, but to sell it at scale, you need to spend tens of millions of dollars convincing people to try it. And if you spend tens of millions on marketing, you can't sell it for $40 because then you'd lose money. So you have to raise your price to somewhere close to the premium brands anyway. And once you're there, you're just another expensive shoe without the brand recognition. The math doesn't close. This is why, paradoxically, the only companies that can undercut the premium shoe market are either enormous retailers with their own private label, like Decathlon or Costco, or tiny direct-to-consumer brands with zero traditional marketing. The middle is dead. The middle has been dead for a long time. Let me zoom out for a second and tell you what I actually took away from cutting this shoe open, because it wasn't really about Hoka. Hoka is just the example. The real lesson is about how to look at any product, any premium product, and understand what you're paying for. Here's the framework I use as an engineer. I ask 3 questions. 1, what does it actually cost to make, roughly? 2, what am I paying for besides the making of it? And 3, of that premium, what am I personally getting in return? Those 3 questions apply to coffee, to cars, to phones, to vitamins, to skincare, to every consumer product you will ever buy. For a Hoka, the answer to question 1 is $6. The answer to question 2 is marketing, distribution, corporate profit, retail markup, and a small slice of real engineering. The answer to question 3, and this is the honest one, is some amount of perceived value, some amount of real cushioning benefit, and a story you get to tell yourself when you lace them up. If that story is worth $150 extra to you, buy the Hokas. I'm not here to tell anyone not to buy them. I am here to tell you that the shoe itself is not worth $165, and that understanding the gap between the object and the price is how you make better decisions over a lifetime of consumer choices. Before I wrap up, I want to address the one question I know is in your head, because I get it every time I talk about this stuff. You're thinking, okay, fine, but doesn't the money also go to the workers? Isn't the premium price how we get ethical manufacturing? I wish that were true. I really do. But it's not. The workers in a Vietnamese shoe factory who assemble a $165 Hoka and the workers in the same province who assemble a $35 Walmart sneaker are often literally the same workers, at the same wage, doing the same job. Just on a different production line within the same factory campus. The factory doesn't pay higher wages because the shoe has a higher retail price. That's not how any of this works. The premium price goes to marketing and brand, not to the factory floor. If you care about ethical manufacturing, the signal to look for is not the retail price. The signal is whether the brand publishes its supplier list, whether it discloses factory audit results, and whether it participates in multi-stakeholder initiatives like the Fair Labor Association. Price is not a proxy for ethics. I need to be really clear about that because it's the most commonly believed wrong thing about this industry. One more thing and then I'll let you go. There's a version of this conversation where I tell you that the entire footwear industry is evil and you should be angry. I'm not going to do that. Because the truth is, the people who work at Hoka, at Nike, at Adidas, at New Balance are mostly just people doing their jobs. Designers who genuinely love shoes. Engineers who genuinely love material science. Marketers who genuinely believe in their products. The system they operate inside of produces outcomes that look absurd when you zoom out. A $6 object sold for $165, but each individual step along the way makes economic sense from that person's perspective. Understanding that nuance is important because it's how you resist the urge to feel tricked. You're not being tricked. You're participating in an economy where this kind of pricing is just how things work. Your job as a smart consumer is to see the system clearly and decide on each purchase whether it's worth it for you. Sometimes it will be. Sometimes it won't be. That's the whole game. And now, after sitting with me through this whole breakdown, you have the information you need to play it well. If this is the kind of engineering breakdown you want more of, the real inside look at how products are actually made and priced. No fluff and no BS. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, because I'm taking a different product apart every single week. Next up, I'm going inside a running shoe you probably already own, and the cost breakdown on that one is going to be even more ridiculous than this one. If you found this useful, drop a comment telling me which product you want me to cut open next. I read every single one, and the most requested product becomes the next video. Thanks for watching all the way through. Most people won't. You did. And that tells me you're exactly the kind of viewer I'm making this channel for.